Hello. I'm sorry, baby. I can't take you out till they get this fixed.
I assume
guess
we're still
so.
setting up.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Are you in?
I'm-
Ben, are you in? Yeah. Can you try talking? Okay.
Test 1, 2, test.
Yeah, we can hear
Okay,
you
thank
now.
you.
Awesome. All right. If everyone who's standing wishes to sit down, please find a seat and sit down. I apologize for the delay in getting started and all the people on Zoom, the delay in getting you in. We had a little bit of a connectivity issue working here, trying to get the Zoom laptop connected to the internet. It's always something. Seems every meeting there's some glorious thing, but that's okay. We actually have made it without too much of a delay. They're going to have to start coming to the meeting. Yeah, I understand that, Frank. But anyway, let me see. All right. Well, I have to punt because I can't find my glasses. So anyway, I'll just have to stand back farther. No, I'm not going to borrow somebody's glasses. Thanks anyway. Welcome to the June 7th meeting. Let's give everyone a hand for having made it here. Yay! Outstanding, guys. Outstanding. This is roughly the 1042nd shoot that phone meeting of PAARA. Give or take a 2 or 3. All right, I am Jim K6SV. And who might you be, sir?
N6NV, Jerry.
All right,
Thank you.
Jerry. Pass the mic on there, sir. These guys set this camera up here.
This is Rich, W6 Alpha, Papa Zulu.
Alan, Alpha Kilo 6 Alpha Delta.
Keith, K1OKS.
Let's hear first.
Barry, AJ6SG.
Good evening. My name is John, KO6DYK.
Leanne, K6WXO.
And Karen, KK6NGA.
And Frank, AF0XX, and I don't know why.
Vicky, N7HBJ.
Jeff, AJ6WX.
David, KD0BTO.
Thank you, Dave, K6WA.
Steve, WB6KIO.
Margaret, K6WEK.
David, KM6RI.
Doug, KG6LWE, and I got field day news.
Rick, K6 Romeo Delta Mike.
Daryl, Kilo India 6 Lima Delta Mike.
Nick, N6VOA.
Benjamin, KO6CNT.
Alan, N6CCK, but that expired 40 plus years ago.
Okay.
Kilo 6 Echo Alpha Uniform.
Danny, KI6Q.
I'm Max and I have no license yet. Just newbie.
Yeah, things the same here. Jazz.
Eric, KK4KYE.
Dean, KJ6IWI.
Josh, N6TZF.
Gabe, KO6EQN.
Barry, KI6OPZ.
Martin, W6MRR.
John, KO6BVO.
Brock, apparently the ARL got hacked, so I don't have my call sign even though I passed my exam 3 weeks ago, but you know,
Well,
gotta take it how it comes.
Yeah, exactly. Make one up. Okay. Mark, AD1M.
Wes, WB6VZQ.
Stiv, K9STV, and I got an announcement about a meter group.
I'm Soren, KN6YUH.
Ben, Kilo November 6, Uniform Bravo Foxtrot.
Good afternoon, everybody. Rob, KC6TYD. Who's next?
I think we're
Is
out of
everybody?
people. Outstanding, outstanding. Doug, would you actually, let's get the mic back to Doug. Would you like to introduce the folks on Zoom, please? All right.
Okay, let's see. I got 4 people in the waiting room without call signs, and I'm not letting them in. So, top of my list is me as Jim. We've got William, WB9YVM, Larry, KD6EUG, Alvin, KB6, ITT. He's a little bit there. Andy, KR6DD is here. Stop jumping around, you guys. Chuck, N6VFH, Clark, KK6ISP, Daniel, K6DLC, Dave, W6VYC, that's Northern Dave. Docs is here, K6DOX, Frank, KE6, stop moving around, please. KE6SLP, Harry, K4YR, one of our station captains for field day. Joe, N6PCR. We've got Bo here, K6EAU. Larry, KD6EUG, who was lurking but didn't check into the Monday Net. Larry, 86LH. Ned, AC, stop moving, 6YY. Pat, K6SW. Pink, K7ILA, all the way from Arizona. Good evening, dear. Red, WB, I'm sorry. Yep, it is. WB7 EC, that 7 always throws me. Rick, N6AJS, Rich, KD6WYK, WB6JOE, owner supported radio, all the way from the Gold Country. William, WB9YVM, and Paul, KK6HWN. And let's see if we got anybody else waiting in the waiting room that I can let in. Yes, Dave, don't move, KJ6JQT. Okay, in comes Dave and the 4 folks in the waiting room without call signs.
What are the names
Continue
of the
to wait.
people in the waiting room, just in case they're non-hams and someone in here recognizes the name?
Oh, okay. Jeff Madrazo. Owen gave me a call sign, so he's in. And Mira Mishra.
Jeff's okay to let in.
Jeff's okay to let in. Anybody know Mira?
Okay, we have no takers. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna leave him where he is then. That's the gang. So welcome aboard, everybody. We have 28 people joining us on Zoom right now. Fabulous. Nice.
Awesome. Yeah.
One more in the room.
Hello, everyone. I'm the new here and also new to the ham radio. So my call sign is N6XYQ. So my name is Catherine Che. Nice to meet you, everyone. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, do we get everyone? All right, hopefully the book will go around to you eventually. Please make sure to sign it so we can account for everyone in the room. It's always good to have those names in the log. Okay, would everyone who helped out with the May 19th electronics flea market please stand up? Yeah, you signed up to do it. All right, let's give them all a hand, huh? Thank you very much. All right, very good. Thank you for that, Doug. I appreciate everybody's help who helped make it a successful event. The proceeds will help cover our Para in the Park events and our field day effort. So thank you very much. We may even have a couple bucks left over for something else. Who knows? We'll see how that works out. We also want to thank Steve for bringing his van, which is out there, and setting it up to show people how HF works and how amateur radio works and so forth. And he has the dubious honor of putting on tomorrow, Sundays effort. So could we get, I'm sure he has a couple words that he'd like to say with regards to Sunday's electronics flea market.
Okay, hello, everybody. Steve Osterberg, K9. Okay.
Right here. Right here.
Okay. Here I am. Steve Osberg, K9STV. I'm one of the officers for Specs who appointed me to Asvaro, so I'm involved with the flea market. I try to be there every month. I started asking myself why we didn't have ham radio events at the flea market. So last month I put one on. I just learned how to do FT8. Yay. It's a lot of fun. I'm still a rookie ham and I'm still doing these events. So I sent out a call. I said, hey, is anybody else willing to show up at the flea market and set up a station? And I have 3 other people that are coming out. One setting up a POTA rig, showing what they carry on POTA activations. Somebody else is going to be doing FT8. Somebody else is going to set up a packet station. And I will just be having a booth for new hams showing Echo Link. So a new ham who can't find people to talk to on their regular HT can get on Echo Link, or if they haven't bought a radio yet. So I'm just trying to talk to new hams. And a lot of the work that I'm doing is through a website called meetup.com, where I'm going to all the clubs in the Bay Area. I'm scraping their websites for events and I'm posting them all up there so people can actually find them. So Para Field Day, FAR's Field Day, this FAR's meeting here tonight, it's all up there. And the idea is it's more easy for people who are interested in ham radio. If they go to Meetup and say, I'm interested in ham radio, they see everything that's available. It just makes it easier to find. I'd like to encourage people to join up and sign up for events you go to, because something I've learned, the more people see on Meetup say, oh, there's 50 people at this meeting, they're more likely to show up than if I post the event up there and nobody signed up for it. They just say, oh, there's only 2 people going to the Para meeting. That sounds pretty dead, and they don't show up. So again, I'd like to encourage you to join. It's free. If you want to host events, if you're willing to host events and create events, I'm trying to get more Elmers out there. I'm doing it myself, and I'm probably the least qualified here among you. If I can do it, you can. Talk to me. I will give you host access to meetup.com. Specs will cover the cost. And I think we can build a lot more community about ham radio here in the Bay Area. Thank you very much, Jim.
All right. Let's give a big hand for that. All right. There's a fine example of a new ham really getting involved. Feet first. Head first? Okay. All right. No, only hard ground. Okay, very good. Let's see now. Who can tell me what June 22nd, 23rd is? First day of summer, okay?
RL Field Day.
How about somebody that's not on the board? Field Day, that's right. Okay, I've finally heard Field Day. How many, show your of hands, who intends to be out at Bidwell Bayfront Park for Field Day?
Yay!
That's good, that's good. All right. How many of you hope to operate a radio out there? All right, good, good. Well, make sure to let everyone know that it's happening out there at Bidwell Bayfront Park. And with that, we'll let our field day coordinator, Doug, KG6LWE, give us words of wisdom.
Oh, my turn again. Okay. Well, things are coming together. We have our 2 main station captains lined up. I have located a second 500-watt amplifier, so we'll be running both of our HF stations, our primary stations, at 500 watts this year. Yay! Thank you. Daryl is lending us one that he has on loan from somebody in what, CARES?
Yeah.
And Marty has generously volunteered to loan us his KPA 500. So we'll be running full tilt boogie. What I don't have right now is let me let this person in. There we go. Is a go-to captain. Our fabulous go-to captain, Christopher, will be out of town on work. And his backup, Miko, will be in Finland seeing his family. So bad timing, guys. Come on. So what I need is a go-to captain. Go-to is get on the air. It's where we sit folks who have zero experience operating HF, at least, get them on the air. So we sit them down with a coach so that they are given some basic instruction and somebody looking over their shoulder to make sure that they're not, I don't know what, goofing up too badly. It's a very low pressure deal, but it's a lot of fun. You get to see the magic in the kids' faces light up when they make a contact. There's just nothing like it. So we're looking to bait the hook and reel in some new hams, and GOATA's a big part of that. So I could really use some help with that. If anybody's interested in stepping up to that plate for at least a couple hours, it would be great. Let me know. Yes, Daryl.
Awesome.
Whoever runs GOTA, because I can't be there on Saturday, the rules have changed in the ARRL field day. Any operator can make any unlimited number of contacts, and each of those contacts itself is worth 5 points. So if they make 10 contacts, that's 50 points. They make 20, that's, 100. So anyway, I wanted to point that out and get some new hams on there.
Outstanding.
Yes, please. Thanks, Daryl. Yeah, it's a big point maker for us, and it's just a great introduction to ham radio. First couple of years I did field day with PAARA, we didn't have a GOTA station. I really could have used one at that point. So I learned everything the hard way. Let's introduce people a little bit more gently then. So GOTA coaches, come see me, please. And setup starts on Friday, the 21st at 9 o'clock out in the kind of like back right-hand corner of the park. So all the way to the end of the paved road, right past the gate that says do not go through here, all the way down to the end, right turn. When you come to the end of that, you kind of head up the dirt road to the right and then follow it around in this big curving dusty trail. Curves around to the left like a big C, and you'll see us setting up out there. So bring tools, bring gloves, bring hats, bring sunscreen, and a willingness to pitch in. We'd love to see you there. More is always better.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doug. Let's give him a big hand for that.
Jim, can I talk about t-shirts real quick? Okay, everybody, it's Rob, KC6TYD, and let's go to, how about that one? Am I on? Oh, hey, there I am. Hey, everybody, I did a terrible thing. I was so in a hurry to get here. I forgot my sheet that had everybody's field day t-shirt orders, and so I have no clue what it costs and what you had down, but I'll take your money if you remember what it said and give it to my beautiful wife over there, Michelle, and she'll put it on the list, and then I'll take the list home and cross-reference to make sure you gave us the right money. If you're giving me cash, I'll take the cash. If you want to check, you can make it to PAARA, and so you don't think I'm heading off to Vegas with all your money. But
Not going to get very far.
yeah, I won't get that far. Anyway, if you're not aware, who's got a t-shirt? Oh, there we go. It's going to be the field day t-shirt like that, but it's going to be
2024.
green. Thank you. Green this year. So hopefully we get these in. I was told we'll get these in before field day. So since they're not here, I'll be making arrangements to maybe deliver them to you. If you're local, we'll figure it out. I'll work with you, and we'll all be sporting our shirts. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's give Rob a hand. All right. Great job, Rob. Let's not forget that there will be some food out there for those who are helping to set up or tear down on Sunday, or the operators on Saturday. So you don't have to worry about bringing a bag lunch or anything of that nature, except they're not hot meals because we can't barbecue out there. It's a fire hazard. And with that in mind too, if you go on the ARRL website and do a search for finding field day sites, our site's listed on there, and the pinpoint is pretty darn close to where we're setting it up. You'll look at Bidwell Bayfront Park, and there's a whole bunch of trails out there. So there will be some signage that we set up, but it won't be set up until sometime Friday when we get out there and start pounding the stakes in the ground and that kind of stuff. So the club call sign, actually, there's two of them. The W6ARA is the club call sign that we'll be using for field day, and W6 OTA for the GOTA station. So if you happen to be working at home and you want to, I mean, hear either of those call signs, reach out and make contact with us. It's working the event from home or some other station somewhere else. Please note that we will be having the July meeting on the 12th, seeing as how the 5th of July is the day after 4th of July, and it's a 4-day weekend for those workaholics. We're having it on the 12th, so make sure not to show up here on the 5th. No one's going to be here. All right, with that said, Rob, do you have a couple of quick announcements you want to make? Or do you want to wait? Either way. All right, then announce the speaker, please. Presenter, excuse me.
Testing. Hey, there we go, everybody. Okay, well, Benjamin, KO6CNT, thank you, is one of our newest members and youth, and he's been extremely active in ham radio. You'll notice that over on that side of the wall on the table, he's got some stuff that they're selling for their ham club at school. So if you grab anything out of there and you want to purchase it, make sure that it gets into the right kitty. That would be him. So way to go, Benjamin, on that. Tonight, he's got a great topic that's been extremely popular right now. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Ben.
Yeah, Ben.
Jack it up, come on. Yeah, that works. Wi-Fi? Oh. Oh. Let Ben in again there. There you go. We got it. There you go. Don't need to.
Right, yeah, I see it. Shoot, I need to give it permission. I'm gonna need to put
While we're waiting, how often does technology get in your way? All the time. As simple as they want to make it, doesn't seem to work that way all the time, does it?
All right,
Yeah.
requesting.
My wife bought a brand new computer, and in the process of installing a couple of pieces of rudimentary software, it came up with a big defender warning. You have a whatever. You need to call us right now. Brand new computer. Like, holy smoking. It's ridiculous. But didn't break it. And because she just had it, there were no files on it. So I said, look, shut it down, even though it says swears at you not to shut it down or it's going to corrupt everything and yada, yada, yada. You don't have anything to lose. Turn it off. And that took care of the problem. But I went on the website to try to find, what the deal was. And it was a big deal. And there were people that fell for it, unfortunately, oh, I granted him access to my computer. Now it doesn't work at all. And you know, that kind of thing. So user beware. All right, Ben, go for it, man.
All right, welcome everyone to the presentation that I'm doing. So it's called "What's So Fantastic About Meshtastic," courtesy of Rob for the name. Call sign here is KO6CNT. Yep, that's the mascot of Meshtastic over there. Chirpy. You'll see why later. I'll give it an explanation. All right. About me, licensed about 6 months ago, started a radio club at my high school. I started the Meshtastic Bay Area group, and I'm a contributor of the Meshtastic project. So what is Meshtastic? So this is taken straight from their website. An open source, off-grid, decentralized mesh network built to run on affordable, low-power devices. So that's just, if you need to explain Meshtastic in one line, that's what it is. You could leave the meeting now. All right. So no license is required, but there is a ham mode. I'll talk about that later. And this is just a diagram of what the architecture of how you use Meshtastic. And you connect the phone up to it. And you could send text messages just like you're using SMS. If you know how to use SMS, you can use Meshtastic. It's just an app that connects Bluetooth, but there's a lot of different options. The phone is not the only option if you don't really like phones. You could do serial via computer, hook it up USB. You can do Wi-Fi, also Bluetooth on the computer. And there's even devices that have keyboards on them, so you don't need to connect anything up. And they could just operate by themselves and just be beaconing stuff out. So here's some use cases for Meshtastic. So texting off grid and in the event of a cell network failure, using live GPS to monitor the locations of people and off-grid weather stations. So Meshtastic is quite low bandwidth, but you could still send GPS, telemetry, and messages. So it's mainly people use it for messaging, but you can use tracking and weather data over it. Oh, actually, let me do some. So that's actually someone built out a Meshtastic unit for the dog's collar. And it has an ATAC integration, if anyone here knows what ATAC is. It's like the Department of Defense made a app for their soldiers to track people's movements and stuff like that, and for communication purposes. And there's a civilian version of that, and it integrates with that app. And here you see there's a tracker. It's showing on the phone. Here just some weather readings here in the iPhone app that's on the iPhone. There's some differences between the iPhone app and the Android app, and that's just I think that's the world record holder for the longest Meshtastic contact. That's actually a stubby rubber ducky antenna that's default on all these that come from China, and he got I'll explain about their world record, but so the technology it runs on, so it runs on LoRa, which stands for long range, and it's a modulation technique that utilizes chirp spread spectrum technology. LoRa transmits small chunks of data with a low bit rate. LoRa is used for Internet of Things devices to transmit data over long distances with very low power. LoRa signals can propagate below the noise floor, and they're ideal for sensors and there's a lot of use cases for LoRa and actively being used today. So this is what LoRa chirp looks like, and this is how the data is actually transmitted. I think you need a pretty high frame rate to capture this, but this is just from an SDR. I got a video. Yeah, that's just data. That's not my video. Rob stole that from a YouTube video. So meshtastic, some terms to know. Node, synonymous with device, can send and receive and retransmit messages. Hops, the amount of times the message is retransmitted. So I hop over a node. So just some more info about the technology. Meshtastic in America operates on the 915 megahertz ISM band, which is unlicensed, but it is the 33 centimeter ham band. So that's why you're able to do ham mode on it. The frequencies are selected automatically depending on the name of the primary channel. So that's something to keep in mind, because my first mistake with Meshtastic was renaming the primary channel to some other name. And to keep it simple, they kind of select a frequency based off that name. But if you keep it blank, it should be a 906 megahertz, which is what we're operating on. Mostly line of sight. There's not much penetration. And most transceivers are operating on 22 dBm, 160 milliwatts, or 20 dBm, 100 milliwatts of power when in unlicensed mode. And the current ground to ground meshtastic record is 158 miles with no hops. And I'll show. I think it was from Canada to America. And since this is unlicensed, you can use encryption, and it utilizes AES 256 encryption, which is basically impossible to break. So you can send all your illegal messages on there. No, it doesn't frequency hop. Oh, you asked about frequency hopping on. I'm not aware of that, but Meshtastic doesn't frequency hop. So it's channelized with 104 frequency slots, meaning 104 possible mesh networks in the ISM band. So Meshtastic was developed with the idea in mind that you can have multiple mesh networks operating without interfering with each other. So it's fine. You can have 104 running. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's better if we can walk a mic.
So raise your hand, and then someone will bring you a mic.
Do the nodes have to agree on what slot they're using beforehand?
No, the user chooses. So they're not agreeing beforehand. Like there's no way they can switch. Oh, you got it, Mike. Okay. So there's no way they can switch by themselves. You actually have to make them switch. But also for encryption, you need to agree on the encryption beforehand, and the encryption key, you can send it as a text message. Just send someone the encryption key. You could tell them the encryption key. I don't think they can write down 256 bits. But mostly it's a QR code. You could give someone a QR code, they scan it, and they have your encryption settings. So this is the ground to ground record, 158 miles here. So someone set up a repeater on top of this giant mountain, and I think, yeah, he was using a line of sight tool. So he strategically went to this point here, and he got 158 miles. The repeater was using an actual antenna, but he was on just a rubber ducky, and he got that distance.
Couple questions. Is meshtastic a point-to-point system, or does it bounce off of other transmitters that are in the area? So say there were 5 meshtastic systems working in this room right now, and I wanted to transmit something out of the room. Would it bounce to the various systems and try to get distance that way?
Yes, so it does retransmit, hence the term meshtastic, the name. So it's creating a mesh network. Each one retransmits amount of times by the selected amount of hops. So I think I'll touch on the routing algorithm, I think after this, but yeah.
And one other question, is there a standards board or something that specifies how meshtastic works, the frequencies, and then provides additional data as to any improvements made to the system?
There's the meshtastic.org site, which has all the documentation. And if you're code savvy, you could read the actual firmware. I think it's the Meshtastic project on GitHub. So, this is the routing algorithm. So Meshtastic uses a flooding algorithm to route packets. When a node sees a packet with a hop count other than 0, it retransmits the packet with 1 less in the hop count value. So I send out a message with 3 hops, someone receives it and sends it out with 2 hops. So this will not infinitely go back and forth and do an echo chamber. So it decrements the hops. And if you send something out with 0 hops, you could do point to point. So if you really wanted to, you could do point to point. A node will not retransmit a message if it already has retransmitted it or the intended recipient of the packet has acknowledged it. So there is some logic to it. It's not just doing pure flooding. And to avoid collisions, nodes use a random timer before retransmitting a message. And nodes that are configured as routers have shorter retransmit times compared to others. So there is some collision checking. And if my node doesn't get an acknowledgement, it'll retransmit up to 3 times at random intervals. Because
what keeps messages from getting lost in a local minimum? Like an area where there are maybe a few good connections to the outside world, but just what keeps it from bouncing around a kind of, well of locality?
I think the way it can get out of a well is by using a repeater or router, and they're optimized to go first. They get first pick at retransmitting, and I think that they will know if a repeater retransmitted it, and they'll avoid just uselessly retransmitting something if a repeater already acknowledged it and said they retransmitted it.
I have a related question. What happens if 2 routers or or whatever they're called, routers, I think, or repeaters, retransmit the same thing and then it shows up at the destination twice?
It doesn't. It has a ID for the packet, so it'll just kind of cancel itself out.
It just the receiver ignores the second one, or?
Yeah, but
I'm saying if both get to the destination line.
It'd just be a duplicate. So a lot of the messages actually do get retransmitted and end up twice. So the apps, I think, yeah, they actually just cancel it out, but it's either the firmware cancels out or the apps, and they just, because you don't get notifications of the same message unless the same person just sent the 2 different messages that look the same.
If you send a message and nobody responds, what happens to the message? How many times will it attempt?
It'll attempt 3 times, and then it will just say that there is no acknowledgement. And usually no acknowledgement means that no one received it. But there are cases, actually, it's quite frequent that it thinks no one acknowledged it, but someone did. Because the way for public messages, the way it knows that nobody acknowledged it is if it doesn't hear anyone else retransmit it. But for direct messages, there is some way where the receiver who receives it sends something back saying, "Hey, I received it," and that also counts as acknowledgement. Yeah, so I just have nodes A, B, and C, so I'm gonna demonstrate here. So node A sends something. It's trying to send to node C, but let's assume there's like a mountain or something, and it only gets to B with 3 hops. Now, B resends it to all its neighbors with one less hop with two. So 2 hops, and C in this case receives it, but A also receives it, but it kind of doesn't retransmit because it knows it's its own message. It's not going to resend its own message, and the intended recipient is going to just stop it because it knows it's intended to it.
Let's test it.
So am I right that the you will receive acknowledged only if the router will receive it? So it doesn't mean that the C will receive it. I mean, you will see on the screen that it's like acknowledged by someone, but it doesn't mean that the destination receive it, because according to your picture, like B received the packet, retransmit to C, and sends the message to A that's like, okay, I received it, but nobody knows if C received it.
I didn't illustrate it sending back an acknowledgement. This is just kind of demonstrating how hop count works. But C in a direct message, C would send back saying that it acknowledged it. But if this was public, if this was just sending out to everyone, the acknowledgement isn't from, because that would be kind of inefficient. Everyone had to send back, I received it, I received it, I received it. It's just gonna know that someone received it based on the fact that it got retransmitted. And for direct messages, you'll see a message probably pop up that says, I think.
That's a spanning tree graph, and basically it's like any other network. Only the destination would send an ACK back. And he is correct. If every node in that path sent an ACK back, that would be really inefficient, and you'd have huge network congestion.
Yeah.
So only the destination should be sending an ACK back. If it makes it back, that's so.
But
the ACK has to be forwarded back as well, right? It
Yeah.
might have to be routed through the network.
Yeah. I think there's something.
Somebody else.
I'm blanking on the name, but it's called like implicit acknowledgement. So there's an implicit ACK that'll show up in the app if you direct message someone, but you didn't get acknowledgement back. It'll just say it heard someone else retransmit it. It could be that they did receive it, but it did reach the network somehow. So it's basically saying in this actual network, node A would get an implicit ACK because it got something, it heard that someone retransmitted it, but there would not be a direct ACK.
Yes, that's the exact thing I was going to mention, that when you get an implicit ACK, you don't know if it gets to your destination, and that's quite frequent as well. When you just send something, it gets acknowledged by any node nearby, and then that's it. But the explicit acknowledgement will come all the way back from the destination as a separate message, and that's when you know it actually, only when this thing goes all the way through, you know the person got it, and they possibly, everything else is a hope.
Yeah, the iOS app actually gives you a prompt to resend the message, just in case, like if I send out a message, no one acknowledges it, I just click a button that says resend and it tries again, and it does the 3 times again. So it'd be 6 times in total, but I resent it physically. I pressed the button only 2 times. Yeah, it might be confusing a lot of people. So differences between what meshtastic does and what Arden does. They're actually not really comparable, but I'm including this because someone may have this question. So meshtastic has a much lower data rate, so you're not going to expect to send images over this, well, over the default settings, but there's very certain, you could send data, but very slowly, I would say, but don't expect to send images. Built on top of totally different technologies, different frequency, different band. Meshtastic is more portable and more economical, and Arden requires a ham radio license. So just anybody could use Meshtastic if they grab a transceiver. So here's some images I'm just going to share about my personal experiences using Meshtastic. So I'm in Santa Clara, and that's just a map of what I'm receiving in Santa Clara. I do receive a lot more, but I'm just showing a screenshot of what's happening in my city. And this setup here is what I did. So I didn't want to spend time waterproofing stuff, putting stuff on the roof. So I decided the better way is to put a node in my attic. And what I have here is, I'll talk about hardware later, but this is a rack whiz block board, and that's the little Bluetooth antenna, and it's crazy. I'm getting Bluetooth throughout the house, and I'm just connecting via Bluetooth on my phone so I can send messages. It's powered off of USB-C. Currently, I'm not backup powering it, so if my power goes down, then it's dead. But Santa Clara actually has one of the most reliable powers in all of the Bay Area, so I'm not too worried about that. And I bought an 8 dBi antenna off of Amazon, and I screwed it into the wall. So it's pretty directional, but like the pattern, it's an Omni, but it's less. I forgot how to describe that, but it has more power to punch through the attic, so that's why I chose it, and it's better for urban environments. So yeah, so I'm seeing, a couple nodes here, and for some reason we're all lined up in a perfect straight line here, and that's just a screenshot from the app. And yeah, and we're able to reliably message within the city. So here's some more of my experiences using meshtastic. So my original use case was outdoors and hiking and stuff like that. So so I actually went on a trip to Death Valley, I think 2 months ago, and it was really fun. But I also brought some meshtastic devices along, and I had these portables. Whenever me and my dad went hiking, we would take these, and we could text, and we were able to share locations. And on the car, I had one of these guys. This was basically the router slash repeater for the whole system. But sadly, I only encountered 2 other random people using meshtastic out there. It was pretty dead radio wise. So it was just me running around with a radio on my roof. And it worked well. We actually didn't split up, me and my dad, out in Death Valley, but if we did, we could have communication out there, and there wasn't even service out there. So so I'm going to talk about hardware. So I would probably base hardware in 3 sections here. The board architecture. So there's boards that are NRF52 based, and those are boards that actually they're a lot newer and they're more power efficient. So if you want to go solar powered, that's definitely, you want to have a board that's NRF52 based. ESP32 is a lot easier to come by. There's a lot more options of boards with ESP32, and usually they come with integrated Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So if you want to do something where you're connected to Wi-Fi, there's some fun stuff you could do with Wi-Fi enabled. You could probably ESP32, but they are pretty power hungry. And for all the tinkerers out there who use Raspberry Pis, you can run directly off Linux. So actually, you don't even need a Raspberry Pi, and just any Linux system can run meshtastic with a suitable chip connected up. So here's some recommended devices I would recommend to someone getting started. And actually, I have 4 recommended, so 2 after this. So the rack whiz block, it's NRF52 based, very low power usage, very modular. I can easily click on, it's like Lego. You add on a GPS. If you buy it, you can add on sensors like humidity and temperature and pressure. There's a dedicated solar input. There's 2 inputs here. There's one for just powering off of the wall, and there's one for powering it off of solar. But the cons are it does require assembly, and I would probably not recommend this as the first one. But if you're this would probably be a second or a third board that I would get, because if you want to run something solar or outdoors, or just want something small that can hold power for like a week, then this is what you should go for. And this sites, you can order it from a Rack Wireless. That's originally where it comes from, all the way from China. So I actually ordered some boards directly from Rack Wireless. It takes a month, and it's just kind of a lot of pain because I have no patience. So don't order from Rack Wireless if you want something less than a month, but order from them if you want to be conscious about how much you're spending, because direct actually costs less. So it's like $24. Rockland, it's the US supplier. Basically, they buy all these boards and they resell it in the US. They get them from China, but they just have facilities here, and they're the best reseller in America for these types of boards. But they do go out of stock because they're getting them uh, from China, so they need a restock. So this is pretty popular. So a lot of the boards are actually out of stock in Rockland. Etsy, that's where you get homemade stuff. So people are actually selling these boards fully assembled with cases and everything. And if you Etsy, people just sell them, have their own businesses just reselling stuff that they made. And you usually have to look out for people who are scamming, because people can add on $100 onto the actual build. Like, so like if a device costs like $200, I'd be skeptical. Like around $100 is usually the highest I would go for a device. But you could probably expect around like $20, $30, $50 for these boards. On Rockland, they sell for $34. So Amazon, just recently they started selling them on Amazon, and Amazon you do have to look out for, because I know people resell stuff on Amazon and they mark up the price a lot because people are willing to pay a lot more for 1-day shipping. But I know there's a known dealer who actually sells these not too marked up on Amazon. All right, T-Beam. This is actually something I would recommend as a first or a second buy. This is a lot less experienced to assemble. So they're fully built with the GPS. So if you're looking for something outdoors, I would get this because it has a GPS already on it, and it has just a battery holder. 18650 will just fit in there. It's reliable because these guys are one of the most popular devices. So there's less bugs for them because it's more tested. But the cons are it's going to have high power usage and a weird antenna placement, because if you see, it's called a T-beam for a reason, because the board is like horizontal, but the antenna is just vertically in the middle of it. I don't know why they designed it like that. It's pretty weird. Maybe sitting on your desk, but it's a bit weird. You could order it from LilyGo. LilyGo is the guys who make it, Chinese company. So a month. Rockland, they also resell it. Etsy, you could probably find something built out. And Amazon, I probably wouldn't get this from Amazon because I've seen they mark it up to like $60. And this is like, I think around 20, 30.
I have a question from the peanut gallery.
Okay, hang on a second, Joe.
So on both of these devices, if you have to update the firmware, is that done over USB, or how does that work?
So these devices, mostly you would do over USB-C. I think most of these have USB-C, except some do have micro USB, which really sucks. But it's really easy to flash firmware. Actually, on the NRF52, they're a bit harder. You have to drag in a file, but there's video tutorials on there. But for ESP32, they're the easiest because you go on the site, you search meshtastic flasher. You go on the flasher site, you press a button to go into boot mode, and then you need a Chrome-based browser, and it just like pushes it through the cable via your browser. So you don't have to do anything. You just press a button.
We have a question from Joe. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking on Amazon and I see there's like several of them that are you get 2 of them for like $55, $56 with OLED displays, and they're all the new ones are ESP32 LoRa V3 at 915. Is that what we need around here?
If it's a T-beam, then yeah, that will work. Just it just needs a LoRa module. but there are some unsupported devices, but these are all supported by the firmware. There's actually a lot of supported devices out there, so most should work.
I think the 915 was interesting because Europe uses a different frequency, correct?
Oh, yeah, actually, I forgot to mention that. Save people from headaches. Order 915. It has to be 915. Actually, since you're a ham, you could actually use anything that's a ham band if you want to run meshtastic on 400. But if you want to link up into the wider network, we're all using 915. So it has to be 915. And a lot of them are actually 800 and 900. So yeah, look out for that.
And just a comment on the T-beam, you were mentioning the antenna being on the horizontal aspect. And Neil in the chat said the Lilygoo team T-beam Supreme actually has designed it to be, there you go, on
Yeah,
the
this is
top. So it's more radio conventional.
I think this adds like 20 or 30 bucks onto it. So these are more expensive than that, but I think they have something better in it. But they cost more. I think they even have humidity and temperature and pressure, but I don't enable that.
You should also mention about the cases.
Oh, yep, definitely. So cases, I have some pictures of what they would look like in a case. And if you have a 3D printer, this is actually really easy to do. You just 3D print a case for it. But if you don't, you could probably find someone on Etsy, because people sell cases on Etsy out there. And a lot of them are actually priced very nicely. Or you could, if you wanted to, what I did before I actually bought a 3D printer just to do this. With what I did is I put it in. So these guys, they come in like these plastic packaging. I just put it in the plastic packaging, drilled a hole for the antenna and just ran it like that. And it actually does work. You could just hold a raw board, but there's a joke in the meshtastic sphere. It's like, it looks like a bomb. So yeah. Actually, I've seen people.
Ben, hey, I stole some of my cases on Etsy. Remember that?
Oh yeah, Owen needs a shout out for his printing business. He prints stuff 3D on Etsy. Yeah, so don't make it look like a bomb, because these most certainly will look like a bomb. Actually, if it looks like a bomb, you're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
People have gone on planes, because a lot of people like to use these on planes to get really really far contacts. And I've seen a guy just with like bare wires hanging out with by his window, and he got like contacts like 300 miles. Like, I think they're breaking the air to ground record I didn't mention air to ground record because they're breaking it every day. And actually, we're sending up a meshtastic balloon with, I'll show this board later, but we're sending up a balloon with SF Hab. Bo. He's helping me out with that. Yeah, we're sending up a balloon with meshtastic on it, so we'll see how far that goes with the line of sight. All right. So here's some two other devices that I would recommend. TTGo LoRa. These guys, if you just want one device to dip your toes into meshtastic, I would strongly recommend this. It doesn't have a GPS. It's just a LoRa module, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth, and it has battery input. It has a USB-C input. So it's small form factor, really cheap, attached display, built-in Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth antenna. Yeah, it doesn't have GPS and high battery usage because this is ESP32. And if you look, also for selecting boards, the better, if you want to get into specifics, if you want to look at which LoRa transceiver module is the best, SX162, those are the best ones. So 162, if you see that, that's 162. I'm just saying the better one is 162. That's the better LoRa module. That's the newer one, as better receive and transmit. It's SX162. I think this one might not have it, but I know the Wiz block has SX162. The TB might also have it. So WizMesh, you might Oh, I forgot to mention where you could buy this from. So LilyGo, this is if it has T in it, it's probably LilyGo. This actually a fun fact. LilyGo, they're named after a woman named Lily in China. I actually didn't know that. That's why it's called LilyGo. So they sell that from China. Rockland also resells it, but it may be out of stock. I don't know. They go out of stock a lot. This is very this technology. A lot of people are buying meshtastic devices, so they might go out of stock. And Amazon, you could probably find it. WizMesh, this is the newest item on this list. So if you want to get something that's high quality, fully built out, you don't have to tinker with, and if you're willing to spend some money on it, this is the way I would go, because these guys, they sell this WizMesh, so it has the Wiz block in it. That's why it shares the WizMesh name. And it has the screen, it has GPS. I think it has an accelerometer, but I don't think accelerometer is utilized in meshtastic, so I don't know why they include an accelerometer. Yeah, it's battery efficient, integrated GPS, really nice form factor. You can use that in your hand, and it's fully built out. Cons, it's expensive. I think it's $80. And I think they're on pre-order, or they're selling them because they just released this.
So you mentioned adding other sensors to the devices. So the WizMesh, I've got a van out there. It's like, I'd like to monitor the battery level and all these other stuff. Can you add other sensors and add that into the telemetry?
For battery, are you saying monitoring the van's battery? You might need to do some tinkering. I don't, off the top of my head, I know that that would be possible, but you would need to actually do a little research and maybe even a little putting together, because I know there's, yeah, you could add a ton of modules onto this. I'm not familiar if you could get power monitoring, but you can do power monitoring of the actual unit. But for these Wiz blocks, they're pretty easy to add sensors onto. So they have like these slots, and you just attach something in the slot, and it should just slot in. But I think for these type of ESP32 boards for sensors, you need to actually solder stuff on.
I think from the perspective of what you see for a node, what are the parameters? Those are all part of a defined schematic, right? So a device, a node has all these attributes like temperature, coordinates, and so on. It might not have something like my car battery, but you could use something like this to send over a private message your voltage or other things that then don't have to be so tightly integrated with meshtastic. You could use meshtastic just to send stuff over, not to have it natively supported.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something, and then so actually I just had an idea of how you would do that. So there's an Arduino library, and you just write some code on Arduino, connect it up via serial to that, and have the Arduino read the voltage, then send a text message over to the meshtastic, and it'll broadcast it. So you would need to write some C++ for that.
Neil in the chat raised their hand. Please go.
Meshtastic also has an extension mechanism, so you can actually add a custom module to do whatever you want. Of course, you'd have to figure out how to read voltage. Especially WizBlock has some environmental things you can just stick on. They have a way to add hardware built into their system.
Yeah, I know there's some external modules. They have a module for everything pretty much. I think it's called remote hardware. I think that's I'm blanking on the name, but there's a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah, continuing this line of questioning. Okay, so with the WizBlock, there are little modules that you can plug into it. Do you need to do any code modification in order to access, let's say, a barometric pressure sensor and transmit that? Or is there a slot somehow in the software, meshtastic software, that's already going to look at those physical slots on the WizBlock?
So actually, that's actually pretty cool because meshtastic auto detects a lot of things, and you just have to enable, I think, environmental sensors module. If you enable that, I think it will just look around and find where that's coming from, and it'll find it by itself. You should probably read the documentation, find if you're putting in the correct slot, because there may be a different slot, but it'll auto detect everything.
Okay. Oh, we got some questions in here, but I think I'm new at Meshtastic myself, and a lot of the toggle switches are actually in the app phone. So you don't have to do too much on the board. Is that correct, Ben?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of ways to access the settings. It's in the app, it's in the web app. You could do it via a CLI if you just want to type in commands and be all hackery. So yeah.
Okay. My question is, how are nodes addressed? If I wanted to send a message from my Hill in Redwood City line of sight to Santa Clara, perhaps, how would I get it to you specifically?
So you could just send it on the public channel. It,
What's your destination address? Or does node have a address, or is there a directory?
they all have IDs. Basically, all the nodes, they send out their node info so they can find other people. And if your node comes in being like, "Hey, I'm new. This is my info," everyone else is gonna be like, "Oh, I haven't seen you before. This is my info." So there'll be like basically a wave of people exchanging info just because you sent out something. And basically, your app will populate with a giant list, and from that list, you could select someone to direct message. But if you're hackery, you could probably figure out a way to direct message people without even knowing them, just using the ID.
Is that a globally unique ID, or what happens if there's a ID conflict?
I know they did something where it changes the IDs, but I'm not familiar on that. Actually, I do have an interesting story on that. So there's a map that aggregates. So there's something called MQTT. That's the fun thing you could do with Wi-Fi. Upload your data to the internet, to the cloud, Magic Cloud. And basically, what people are doing, they're pulling all that info from the cloud, getting all the positions, getting all the node info, and plotting every single device on a map. So there's a giant global map of where everyone is. And like, there's no one who shares an ID with me in my RF field of view, but I think there's a node in Oregon who shares my ID, and in Czechoslovakia. So if you look at the map, you won't find my base station because it shares the same ID. It'll either be in Czechoslovakia, it'll either be in Oregon, or it'll have a different name of the node that shares the same ID.
But if you took your node to Czechoslovakia or Oregon, one of those places exists, and you attempted to use Meshtastic, what would happen? Would they negotiate about changing IDs, or would everything get routed to both of you, or what would happen?
I think I found something before, but I don't remember that they do some negotiation. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll show up as the same thing, but yeah, there's actually a lot of ways you could take down a network actually if you wanted to. So it's all trust, because this is technically, you're not Meshtastic wasn't built for a giant public network. It was more built for, as I said, 104 channels just with your friends. But since we're doing public channel, I could send a ton of spam messages, overflow everything. And also, what it is MQTT is cool when you're uplinking. It's not cool when you're downlinking, because the devs did a mistake and implemented one of the worst features ever, where you could get all the data from the cloud down and transmit it. So this is really cool if you're just lonely and you want to get other people on RF, but it's bad in a big network when you're getting messages from just, let's say, Florida, and you don't want messages from Florida because it's not fun to have stuff that's not RF based, and it's just adding unnecessary traffic. How many IDs can you have? Let me actually look how long the ID is. 32 bits. Yeah. Yeah, 4 billion of them. But Yeah, it's 4 billion possible, but you may share an ID. Uh,
I just comment that the default name that it picks, however, is the low 16 bits of the MAC address of the Bluetooth, and that has a lot of collisions possible, unfortunately. It's like I started off as, D768 or something like that, but you can put in different names, different short names and long names. It helps discriminate. But it generates a 32-bit ID for the person.
Yeah, short names and long names, that it won't cause collisions because it bases itself on ID. But short names and long names is how you appear to the world. Like I'm doing KO6CNT base and as my long name, and then I think very, very small number of bits for your short name. So if you have, I think it's like 3 letters, so three letter long short name to identify yourself. But that's sent out in your node info. Okay. So I'm gonna do a demo here. If we could get this camera on. Got a lot of stuff. You can see I got some devices here, and I'm just gonna show them off.
Be a spirit.
Yeah, can you plug this in? Okay. Got a lot of fancy stuff here. It's pretty cool. Let me turn this on. So if you don't like phones, I have 3 options for you here. I think there's some other options, but this is basically what I think these are the 3 most popular options, how you would do some setup with no phones involved. So this is actually Linux native. This is a Pi 400 here with a screen on it and with a tiny LoRa antenna on here. And they're actually working on some UI changes because this looks very hackery, but it's not too useful. And I can scroll through this and see who's around me. So I'm just gonna try out with this. This is a T deck. It's from LilyGo. Yeah, if it has T in it, then it's from LilyGo. I could just type stuff. Oh, someone just sent a message in here. Sorry. All right. That's some of these have sound on them when they one of these actually vibrates. So if I send test, vibrating. This one vibrates. This one sends this one does a sound. This one also does a sound. Look. You see that it says hello from the monthly meeting from Soren, actually. SCP1, Soren Portable 1. That's your naming scheme here. Yeah, this guy, this is a Heltec board. I didn't talk about what Heltec is, but it's just an ESP32. Has a card KB connected to it. So this is some tinkering, but this is from a guy who sells these on, I think, Tindy, not Etsy, but it's the same as Etsy. It's called Hell Text. So you're texting from hell, actually. It's called that because this is a Heltec module, but the keyboard isn't as nice because it's just metal here instead of BlackBerry type here. I'm just gonna. That one did a sound here, and this one's vibrating. So you could set up all these tones. Like I can have this play "Never Gonna Give You Up" by Rick Astley if I wanted to. It's called RTTL. I think there's a programming language for basically writing your own tones, and you can probably find something online.
Hey, Ben, let me get away from the speaker. Since these here have some screens on them and some don't, do you have your phone? You can show what we would see on our phone app?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna show that right now, but I'm just gonna talk about what I have here, and then I'm gonna show on the phone. So here I have what was on my car. This is usually on the car what I have. Just magnets. This holds on really tight. A guy sells these on Etsy. He's the main developer for the iOS app, so any purchases support him. This is about, I think, $80, but the solar panel is actually quite small, so I could expect about 4 weeks on this. So it's not keeping it stable, but it is it's improving its lifespan with this tiny solar panel. But I think you could probably have it stabilize the battery level if you don't have GPS, but I actually added GPS onto this, so the battery life was worse for me. Yeah, this is the T-Beam Supreme here. Oh, yeah. So this is one of my first devices that I got here. So let me just show what I'm looking at on the app here. I'm actually connected to this T-Echo. LilyGo sells these T-Echo. Yeah, LilyGo, the T in the name. These guys, they come with GPS in them. They're NRF52, but I kind of don't like them, so that's why I didn't recommend it. But this is also an option if you want to get something that's fully built out without having to 3D print anything. So I'm connected. So I'm connected here on the app, and you could see I'm KO6CNT T-Echo. Could we? Oh, I guess I'm gonna have to flip it somehow. But it's my name is KO6CNT T-Echo. That's what I'm connected to, and I'm seeing AD1M. And I'm seeing SC Portable from Soren Discone. This guy is a repeater up in Los Gatos. I'm getting that. And it shows you the signal. This is iOS. The Android's gonna look different, and Macs and mobile. So if I go on a map, this is kind of what I'm seeing here. And if we go over here, this is where we are here. You can see some nodes populated here. This is all the devices that are near us, and they're just sharing their GPS data. So I'm seeing where they are. And I do have some stuff across the Bay Area. So this cone, what I was talking about, this is Los Gatos. So I'm getting Los Gatos. And yeah, for diagnosing issues and finding out how your network's built up, there is something called trace routes. So you could send a message and find out who you're hopping through. But it does take up, actually, trace routes take up a lot of network utilization, and they don't always come back to you.
Question from Zoom. What type of device do you have in your mobile rig? Is it ESP32 or a rack device?
This guy, this is NRF52. This is a whiz block here. So he sells them with the whiz blocks, and he has a custom PCB on it.
What would I do if I wanted to send a message to you? Is it I generate a message, and if you happen to be watching, you'll get it? Or
Actually, these guys, they save stuff in their they have limited memory, but they do save it. So if I come back to my device connected by Bluetooth, it's actually gonna send me a notification to say that you did send me. I'll show you how I actually send direct messages. You switch to that. So I could go to channels or direct messages. Channels just broadcast stuff, and you could have a second channel that you do encryption on, and the primary is what the frequency is based off of. And for that, that's just the public one is my primary.
So quick, so they do store and forward, meaning that if Frank sent you a message, but you were not online, that message is going to get stored somewhere. But you said it was limited memory. So is it FIFO or is it LIFO? When does Frank's message, how does Frank's message get aged out if there's only limited messages?
So there's a node DB. It stores nodes in its database. It has its own database system. Store and forwards, actually, we have a store and forward module here. I don't have it enabled, but I know for store and forward, I've never used it, but if you have a repeater that has store and forward enabled, you can basically ask for it to broadcast back any messages it received. But what I'm talking about here is when I connect via Bluetooth, it just gives me kind of its database. I connect to it and it gives me its database. But for direct messages, what I was talking about here, if we could switch back. So I can see a ton of nodes. This is just in my phone's database. My phone's storing all this. And if I want to send a message to SCP mobile, I see, actually, I don't know why that's duplicated, but so it's just the UI of, looks like iMessages. And I could just send hello. We'll go through here. And let me just, oh, yeah, Soren just got it. It hasn't said that was acknowledged yet, but it's probably because my network's really weird with a ton of devices just here. This is not ideal. Like, if you have devices, I would recommend having as many of them off as possible. Just have, usually you want to have one on for yourself, because more, you're just going to be acknowledging your own messages, and it's going to be really weird. But usually you just want to have one. Yep. So it's just, you can see here, this is what messages look like. I can actually reply to them. I could do emojis on them. So this is just like text messaging, basically. And this is Bluetooth settings, a map, and I could go into my settings and so many modules here. I could configure everything as I want. Telemetry here. Yeah, store and forward. There's a store and forward module here, actually. And telemetry and also logs, so I can know what's going on. It's logging.
I have a question regarding the encryption. You mentioned that it has IIS 256 encryption. This is about the channels. What about the direct messages? Are they encrypted?
Nope. Direct messages are actually currently in the current implementation. It is not encrypted. Basically, direct messages are encrypted with your primary channels encryption. So if your primary channels, just everyone uses the primary channel, it won't have encryption. But if you're running some private network with a encrypted primary channel, then it will be encrypted for everyone else. But if you can message them primary, if everyone can see your messages, then they'll see your DMs. But these apps, they actually filter it out. These guys filter direct messages out. So my devices didn't start buzzing when I sent to Soren. They actually are a little bit smarter than that. But if you know a little bit coding, you could probably intercept direct messages. But yeah.
Does it mean that if I have a secondary channel, like I swap the secondary channel and the primary channel, and I will be able to receive all the messages from the network from the secondary channel, and I will have my private primary channel, and I will be able to send the messages between my devices using the primary channel encryption. So I will be able to, I will be able to have encryption between my messages, my nodes, and I also be able to see the network messages.
Yes, actually, that would work, except if you change the primary channel name. Because if you have a blank primary channel name, long, fast, nothing's pretty much defaults, except you have an encrypted primary, and a secondary that is just basic encryption, the default encryption. You will see people, and you'll have everything encrypted. But what will happen is you basically won't show up in the network. You'll just be able to kind of see everything. But what I prefer is having my secondary just encrypted. Everyone can see me, but if I want to send an encrypted message, I can have a secondary channel where stuff is encrypted. All right. I think I'll have the demo after the meeting, but I do have some other stuff I want to.
I have a question. You're mentioning quite some distances of being able to transmit messages, and also mentioning using encryption. How long do you think that'll last?
The government regulations, you mean?
Before the government does something about it, yes.
I actually don't know, but Actually, I actually don't think so, because if they crack down on this, they also crack down on Internet of Things and gas meters and all that kind of stuff. Because I'm pretty sure they also run encryption and they're getting away with it. But this ISM band, it's actually for like scientific research, so we're kind of using it for non-intended purposes. But I think it by laws, this is fully legal. So, but I don't think they'll change it actually.
Yeah, so I know you're new to amateur radio, so I'm not expecting you to know a lot about emergency communications that we're involved with, certainly here in the Bay Area or anyway. But I was wondering, this is very interesting tools here, but I'm trying to envision the operational ability of using this tool in an emergency. So I'm not seeing that, but I appreciate what you're doing.
Actually, there is a lot of emergency. I'm actually kind of involved with Santa Clara Aries Races, and I know Soren's doing CARES. They're actually testing out meshtastic for their own uses. So there are actually a lot of emergency uses. So you could basically you could contact people that don't have a ham license. This could be useful if you want to reach out to your friends or family during an emergency. Also, it's quite useful as like a pager system. Like you can have one of these guys running 24/7 with a vibration module. You don't even have to be connected to a phone. It'll just vibrate when you get a message. And if you're doing emergency, actually, what I would recommend is not using defaults, because if there is an emergency, channel utilization could actually spike up and you might be kind of dead in the water with uh, people just sending a ton of messages. And because we're using all same frequency, but for messing around, it's actually quite working well. But for emergencies, I would probably do on some other frequency. I would change the primary channel name and maybe even use ham mode if you want to with extra power. I think I have some details on ham mode, but also for emergencies, what I'm working on right now is if anyone knows what SAME codes are, ES system from the National Weather Service, I'm making a system where I have a Raspberry Pi connected to an SDR that's going to decode all the same messages that are sent in. So if there's a warning, watch, an emergency, it will decode that over the RTL SDR and then send it over meshtastic via serial that's connected to. So I have that fully working, and I expect that if there's some kind of emergency, then people will be notified over meshtastic. And it's like kind of like a pager system. And if your cell service is down and networks are down, you're not going to get notifications. You won't even know something happened probably if AT&T is down. I think I'll go on with doing a. I'll come back to this later, probably after the meeting. But yeah, I do. I'm just finding it. Okay, there we go.
Now you can't encrypt this when you're in ham mode, can you?
Yeah, you can't. If you do ham mode, it's actually smart. It will turn off encryption, but do not run ham mode if you want to talk to others on the default. Because I've actually happened to so many people, because people just see ham mode and they just switch it on because I'm a ham and I want to use all my privileges. But when you turn that on, you'll just be filtering out everyone else, because everyone else is using encrypted, and your device will ignore everything that's encrypted, and it's not good on the default channel because everyone's running encrypted. So you're just going to be ignoring everything. But here's just some stuff that we're doing meshtastic in the Bay Area. So here's just one of the latest images of those maps I was talking about that use MQTT data from the internet. And I have some in my house. I put a logger thingy that uploads all this data to the internet, so this map can propagate. So there's a lot of nodes if you see here, and most of them are people's houses, but some of them are actually repeaters, systems that are relaying stuff. And the blue ones are just the devices that are RF based, and the green ones are the ones that are uploading stuff to the internet. And that's just a cool image of a meshtastic node by the by the Golden Gate Bridge, and we have a website, and soon we're gonna update the website with a cool banner image, and that's just meshtastic in Santa Clara. Pretty cool images, and this is kind of what's going on in the Bay Area. These are not my images, but these are some setups here. So I think this is a guy in the North Bay. He has a meshtastic setup on his roof. I think there's Arden and some other stuff on there, but one of those is meshtastic. This is a map. This is basically a map of what you would see in the map. This is a map of what you would see on your phone. So this is the iPhone, what you would see, and it's pretty crazy of the stuff you're getting. So this just big rainbow is every single one of these is a device. Is that through the meshtastic app? Yep, this is the app. So yeah, this is all like RF based, and sometimes stray signals can come through. Maybe I could get I get Oakland pretty spotty. We haven't fully worked out the network. There's not I would say we have repeaters, but coverage is still working out. But within South Bay, I can get reliably within South Bay, but getting to Oakland, I can get to Oakland sometimes, but SF for me and North Bay, I can't get up there. But actually, it's weird. Soren Palo Alto, he can. I think you could reliably get to. No, I know Cupertino. You could rely. I know you and Tay can reliably get to Oakland. You guys are getting stuff from Oakland, so it depends on where you are. But I'm sunken low in Santa Clara, and but I'm getting a lot of South Bay, and South Bay is actually working well for me. And yeah, you get stray signals propagating through, like during the solar storm stuff was being weird. I was getting really far contacts. Oh, it was all at 1 a.m. I would wake up and I would look at my map and I would be like, wow, what is this? That's actually Soren's setup on his roof with solar. I think, is that a rack whiz block? Yep. With solar. Yeah, that's a pretty cool antenna there. So this is kind of, I got a map. I asked one of the programmers who does all this MQTT stuff to export some data, and I built this map. So this is based off ISO week. I don't. It's kind of hard to read, but just 23 is where we're at right now, and that's the latest. So we started out at 80 nodes and we jumped up to 300. I don't know why there's a dip, probably people turning their devices off, but it's giant growth. Like 2 months ago, it was not too many people, but now it's just crazy. It's exploded rapidly. So here's just some basic setup if you get a node. So you gotta get a supported device, meshtastic.org. If you just search the name Meshtastic, the official website will show up. They have a devices list of all the supported devices, or you could just get what I recommended. You wipe and flash the firmware using the Meshtastic flasher. You just search Meshtastic flasher. That will be the first thing that pops up. Actually, that's not good cybersecurity device because someone could pose as a flasher. But anyways, you search Meshtastic flasher, install it, wipe and flash the firmware because you want to wipe any previous things that were on there because when they ship from China, they could have stuff on it. No, I mean, they could have firmware on it that's not yours. And you want to wipe and flash it. Usually on the wipe and flash page, they'll give you some instructions on what button because you have to press a button to put it into the proper mode to flash it. Then you connect the node via serial or Bluetooth to a phone or a computer. Usually I use my phone because that's a lot easier. And then you set the region to United States because it doesn't know where you are. And you don't want it broadcasting on 800 megahertz, which is England. They use a different ISM band. So you need to set it to United States, which it'll set it to 915 megahertz. That's why it's important to buy the right LoRa module that has a 915 megahertz. You change the node long and short name, like how people will see you if they discover you. Your long name will just be a giant description. You could put your call sign in there, a website, an email. I've actually, personally, I like to make my long name as descriptive as possible. So if someone sees my long name pop up, they know what's happening. I have a website in there and I have my my call sign, so someone could email me off my call sign. but non-hams usually, there's a lot of non-hams on it and they just get confused when you have call signs, but I just use it. Yeah, and short name, it's 3 characters, or you can use an emoji if you want. You could pop up as a smiling face emoji if you want in your short name, but it's kind of weird because you're limited on bytes. Some emojis have longer bytes than other emojis, so only some emojis work.
Ben, let me interrupt real quick. All the Zooms people that are watching, our 2-hour timeout might be coming up. If you lose us, we'll reconnect, just to let you know.
All right. So ham mode, this is for anyone who's interested in the extra transmit power and stuff like that. So up to 10 watts of transmit power. Actually, I don't think you're going to get 10 watts out of these. I think these are all up to 1 watt. But I can, if you're looking for something ham mode specific, I could point you to specialty devices that have a lot more output power. But I don't think you're going to find, I think you could find up to like a 5 watt or 2 watt transceiver that uses this, but there's not enough of a market value for hams who want to use this stuff. It's mostly non-ham. So usually it's up to 1 watt. So legally you could go up to 10, but realistically you'll be going up to 1 on this. And that's actually going to be a lot more than what the non-ham version of it is. And you could use really high gain antennas. You can, you know, kill people with RF using meshtastic. So the cons are you can't join the default mesh. You won't be able to see anybody else. You'll just be like, why am I not seeing anybody? I'm on default, but I'm using ham mode because everyone else is using encryption. Yeah, you can't use encryption, so all messages will be decrypted, but everyone knows how ham radio works, so yeah. So this is how you join it. How you join our network that we're running on the default frequency. So default settings, what I would recommend is don't go around changing settings you don't know, only if you really know something. Most of the default settings work really well. The only things you need to change are region and name, and most of that. But don't really touch other stuff that you don't know because you might mess something up. So set it to long fast, but that should be the default. Default encryption and blank channel name. Don't change the primary channel name because that will change the frequency. I made that mistake where I renamed it and it changed the frequency. Frequency is decided by the primary channel. Default frequency is 906.875. So you could catch me listening on 906.875. And that's actually that's actually slot 20 if you're going by the 104 slots. But since this is doing automatically with the name, it's setting it to slot 20. But if you want to specifically set it to a proper slot without changing the name, you could go in there and change it to a slot. But by default, it should be slot 20. But if you see slot 0 means it's just going by the name. So if you have a blank name in slot 0, that's fine. So you could go out and make your own mesh on a different frequency for specific purposes, but this is the easiest way to play around and mesh with others. And join our Discord. We have a domain name bayme.sh, so it spells out baymesh. That's where you can find our Discord, and I would highly encourage joining because that's where all the communication will go through. And we have a logger thing. So someone programmed up a bot that basically any message that goes through default long fast will get logged to a Discord channel, and you could just see how you're propagating, who heard you, and if you're actually making it out. And we have that. We just have a ton of resources in there, and I do announcements about upcoming events and stuff. And actually, we are running a net every Wednesday at 5 p.m. And it's not really a net, but I'm just sending out a message and saying, anyone, just send out a message with your name and your long name and the city you're in, and tag it, and just seeing how everything propagates. And then we're holding a voice call in the Discord. Yeah, I'll have the link up later with the QR code if you still want to get that. Yep. So this is the QR code and the link. So yeah, I would advise everyone to join. We're at 230 members, I think, and want to get that up to 300 by the end of this meeting. So yeah, spread that. But yeah, we already beat San Diego group. I think they're at 100. But we're going for, I think, the Southern California group. I think they have 500. So, yeah. Southern California, actually, I think, yeah, in all of California, southern, like Los Angeles area, they have the biggest mesh. They have a ton of people. I don't know why Southern California loves meshtastic, but we got to beat them. Yeah. So repeaters. So we have multiple repeater sites hosting meshtastic repeaters to expand the network. Some of these include Diablo and Mount Vaca. There's several other repeater sites that are still in planning or approval stages. So these two images are Mount Diablo. This is still up, but I actually can't reach it because only like East Bay, North Bay, SF reaches it. It's not coming down to South Bay. But Mount Vaca, that's also more northern. But all these actually, there's a group that's next to a Sacramento mesh. They actually have a big mesh in Sacramento, and these repeaters actually link up to Sacramento. It's pretty cool. Mount Vaca, actually, I don't think it's still up, actually. Someone stole that. Because this is just at a publicly available site. So putting stuff up on actual towers is a lot better because it doesn't get stolen and vandalized. Like, it was a cheap module anyways, but I don't know if they're just probably doing it for the fun of it. All right, so info for developers. If you know any of these programming languages, if this seems familiar to you, join help out. Looking for developers. Personally, I helped contribute with the iOS app, which is written in Swift. So some of the features on the iOS app were made by me. So you could contribute to GitHub. PRs are welcomed. The only way for a open source project to grow actually is through contributions. Like you could complain and all, but usually people will tell you if you complain enough, they'll just tell you just go do it yourself. So yeah, yeah, the main code for the Arduino just written in C++, Kotlin for the Android app, Flutter, they're making a cross-platform app, Rust, there's a library for meshtastic using Rust, JavaScript, TypeScript, that's for the websites, for the documentation pages, Python, there's a CLI, and there's a library based in Python, Java, there's an ATAC plugin. I think I talked about ATAC at the beginning.
Benjamin, there was a question on Zoom real quick, and I know we're getting short on time, so we'll try to get to this and then you can finish up. Rachel says, what's the difference between repeater and router mode?
Oh, actually, that's pretty interesting. So repeaters, if you just want something as power efficient as possible, I would go repeater mode. But repeaters don't announce anything. They're just silent. They're shut lips. They don't send out their own info. They're just invisible on the network. They just repeat anything they hear. And if you're setting something up in like a illegal location, I would go repeater. Or if you're just really, really conscious about your power. But otherwise, I would not recommend it because nobody's going to see it. And it's just going to be invisible. But router mode, actually, like, it routes packets. So it's a lot smarter. It uses more power. You could even have a router mode that uses a Bluetooth. Like I have this guy running router client, so it both routes stuff and uses Bluetooth, and I could use it as a client device. And routers announce themselves to the network. And routers is usually what you use for doing store and forward stuff. Okay. So further resources, meshtastic.org, official documentations page, the Meshtastic YouTube page, and Ham Radio Crash Course. He does a lot of cool videos about Meshtastic, and he's a pretty good resource out there. But I would say that there's some YouTube videos that are not trustworthy. Like I've seen a guy recommending that people run 800 megahertz in North America, which is a police band, and he claimed that Meshtastic was a transceiver and not a radio and didn't fall under the same rules. But these are some trusted resources that I would use. Ham Radio Crash Course actually put out a video about channel utilization and how networks can get swamped on his channel, official YouTube page, and meshtastic.org. So if I was to take out anything from this meeting, for this presentation, it would just be the word Meshtastic, because if you search Meshtastic, you'll find resources. All right, yeah, and there's the link again if you want to join the Discord.
All right, well, let's take some quick questions and then we'll get things rolling here. We're getting a little bit behind, but great topic. Who had a question? Question? Oh, I thought I saw a hand up. Put the link. Anybody on Zoom, come up on, put something in the chat or say something if you have a question. Oh, Rich, got it. Hang on.
I'm curious as to how long you've been working with the meshtastic.
So I would say probably like a month before I got my ham license is actually what got me into ham radio. Because communications, I wasn't really interested in comms before this. But I think 1 month, like 1 or 2 months before that. So I'd say like 8 months, 9 months I've been into this. I think 3 of those months were just me researching stuff. Like every day I would go on YouTube and watch any latest videos about this until I actually took the plunge. But after I took the plunge, it took a month to arrive. So you get kind of bored waiting for stuff to ship from China. So I was just watching any resources I could get. And then afterwards, I actually got into the network. And then I was kind of like, oh, I can't reach anything from my house. So I'd only use it on hikes until recently when, the mesh started growing out and I could.
Sound's gone.
I think we timed out from the what's it called, from the meeting.